Hello, Mastertron Tamer here. This is the second video in the series about my Christmas lights. And in this episode, we're going to go ahead and build a string of these lights and kind of explain how the connectors work and how the wiring works and all of that. So before I get started, I did just want to kind of mention and just show you this. Before I started this, even though I'm replacing one and I have the original to sort of use as a pattern, I still go ahead and make very careful measurements, you know, the old adage, measure twice, cut once, to figure out how I'm going to do this. As well as even down to the detail of how I'm going to solder the connectors, where the heat shrink's going to be, and so forth. So I'll be using some of these notes as we go through and create these. So before I get started, I'm going to be crimping my wires together with some special ferrules, which are going to give me really good connectivity. And I'm going to be using a splicing method that I've been using, for a very long time. I don't know exactly how long. And I wanted to show it to you. Like I said, I'll be using these fancy ferrules, but they're not required to know how to do this method. So what I did is I just took a very inexpensive terminal and cut it off so that I just have the part that crimps over the wire. I then can slide in one wire, and then the other wire I want to connect, I slide it in from the other direction. So my goal here is to mush the two wires together. That's going to make a really strong connection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part. So you could do this, like I said, these are just the very inexpensive crimp terminals that I use for this. And I push both wires through, one from each side, give it a good crimp, and that's a very strong mechanical connection. But to give it kind of the best possible way of making that work, I then, if it's going to be in a high vibration environment like a car or boat, the next thing I do is put in some solder. And I'll be doing this way as well for the Christmas lights, because they do blow around in the wind, and we're going to be in the weather. So once I have crimped it, a little bit of solder in there, and then I would typically put heat shrink over that. And like I said, I've never had one of these connections fail when I do it like this. So I'll be doing a version of that as I put this together, but I just wanted to show you that ahead of time if you just want to know how to make a reliable connection. Alright, so this one's a little bit more complicated. I've got a lot of wires to put together in how this is all going to work. And I'm debating right now if I should show you these. Yeah, let me show you them at time. So I'm building the feed end of this cable, and I'm actually running an extra 16 gauge cable from one side, from this input side all the way over to the other side, because that's where we feed the rest of the lights. And I just want to make sure that I've got good connectivity and I can flow enough current over to those other lights. So that's one of the things being connected. I've also put in one of these quick connects. This is a tap point. So when you're working on these lights, it's not unusual to discover that you need to inject more power at one point or another. So that's what this is for. Should I discover at some point that I need to hook up a more powerful DC source, I'll already have a place to do it. This is the pigtail going off to plug in to the other cable. And then finally, the last part of this is the actual lights themselves. And let me grab those and bring those over. Here we go. So I have just verified one more time that I'm working the arrow right. So this is the side that connects up to the controller, so the arrow should be pointing this way. Doesn't hurt to double check that every time you do it. Doesn't hurt at all. Alright, so here's the string of lights. That's the next thing that's going to be connected. So now it's just a matter of putting them together. I've already gone ahead and stripped these. These are pre-tinned wire. I did want to mention that too. The wire I use, this is called marine wire. The sheathing is says gasoline, oil, UV light resistant, very tough stuff. But the other thing is it comes pre-tinned. This is going to be the best thing for wire, connecting up wires, whether you crimp them or solder them to get the best connection. All right, so that is the next step of this. What we want to do is go ahead and start putting these together. Use a little flashlight to verify what I'm connecting. So this is the ground side. So these are the special little ferrules that I'm going to use. These will work even better and are a little bit stronger. I really want to make sure that I have excellent connectivity with this. To the pigtail that's going to hook up to the controller, I'll take its negative as well. Need to there we go, so that it wants to slide in there. You know, and actually, now that I think about it, I think I want to hook up this one first. So let me put that one in. All right. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in that one. And I'm just verifying that they're all in there, nice and snug. And then it's crimping time. There we go. So that was just the first one. To get it to kind of fit into the slot I want it to fit into. Alright, so I'm going to double check that none of them pulled out, that they're all connected. And I'm going to go ahead and double check that crimp as well. And that's my more or less finished product. Because these were all squished together on this tinned piece of metal, it is super conductivity right now, but we want to make sure it's prepared for what might happen in the weather. Before I do this, because the soldering is kind of a little harder to undo, I'll first double check that that's the ground. These are all grounds. Okay, that's good to solder. Now, I'm wondering how close up I can get this where you can still see it. Yeah, that's kind of going out of your view there. I'm going to have to back that up just a little bit more. So I will, in editing, close up a little bit more. What I'm going to do is heat up this ferrule and then put solder in on both sides. Solder's kind of really fun to work with. It flows towards the heat. So if I heat the ferrule, it will flow into it. And let me do the other side as well. Okay, I'll wait until the ferrule heats up to the point that the solder's melting on it, because otherwise it's a waste of time. Okay, we're there. And now we can just put in some solder from the other side. And we'll let that cool down. I want to double check. I've got heat shrink to go over that, and I want to make sure that hasn't shrunk yet. But I think we're good. All right, so that's our first connection. That's a really good solid connection. The next one we're going to do is the positive side of all this. So let me get that one ready. That's the red wire here. On this pigtail, that's actually the white wire, because they didn't use red and black like most folks do. So I've got another ferrule ready. And we'll get this side ready. Okay, got that one connected. Yep, it was slipping on me. And I kind of need to get this other one out of the way too, before I crimp that. Okay, and I'm going to put the final crimp on it, just double checking that everything is still where it belongs. All right, So just like last time, we already have a good mechanical connection here, but we're going to juice it up and make it impervious to water, to vibration, to everything else with a little bit of solder. So I'll heat it. Again, I'm going to heat the ferrule up until it's melting solder. And I'm going to put the solder in, and I'm actually sort of going between the ferrule and the wire itself, keeping the hot iron on the ferrule so the solder will flow towards the heat. Okay, that one's done too. All right. So, those ones are done. I'm going to pause the video for just a second because I just remembered I don't have my heat gun, and that's the next step. As you can see, I've got my heat gun now. We're good to go there. And I have pre-positioned heat shrink to go over these connections. Actually put it under a little bit of tape here because they tend to dance around and to get into all kinds of trouble. So let me pull that tape off. There we go. And come on, there it goes. It's a little bit tight, but that's not a problem for how it's going to seal up once it's done. Come on, there it goes. It's funny, it was not that tight when I put it on there. It may have actually shrunk a little bit just from the heat of the soldering, which is always a worry. Okay, so that one's on. Let's see if this one is as stubborn. Oh, it's moving a lot better. So just like I use marine wire, I use heat shrink, which is often also referred to as marine heat sink. And the difference is, internal to it, it has an adhesive. So once I shrink this on here, that adhesive is going to melt, and then it's going to seal up these connections for me. So this will end up being very watertight by the time we're all done. Okay, I've got that one going. I'm just trying to decide how far I want that to go. But I think that will work. All right. So those are sealed up, and that will be good there. And then the only thing I haven't connected yet is the signal wire. It's this one in the middle, and it just happens to be green on both. And I was waiting to do that because I wanted to see how this cover piece of heat shrink was going to fit over all of this and how I want to do that wire. Let me think about this. So this direction in the wire channel, we flip that around, it's actually going to be like that. This is going to be going towards the other side. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and slide this one on. Yeah, and like I thought, that's a little tight to go over there. We can probably sneak one more on there, but maybe we don't want to do it quite like that. Well, I think we'll have enough room. Let's go ahead and connect these two up. Okay. Get one more. We're going to pigtail this one. I think that'll have it all go together the best way possible if we do that. Okay, so this is about ready to go. I do need a small piece of heat shrink to go over that. Let me grab that. That should work. Okay, so let's solder. And that will need to cool just a bit before we try and put the heat shrink over it. Okay. So this is all ready to go at this point. We just need to slip it into the big piece of heat shrink, and hopefully it all fits. And it looks like it does. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll, now that we've got that on there, let's go ahead and shrink that, and this side's connection will be done, except we need to put a connector on here. Okay, for the connector end, now I've got a Deutsch pin on each one of these, all crimped on nice and tight. That's going to give me a really good connection over time. One of the cool things about these connectors is they're also watertight, and they're numerically numbered 1, 2, and 3, which I use my little flashlight because they're so small. So with my wiring, the ground is on 1. So I'll go ahead and push that in. And they just push straight in. There's a seal back there behind it that's going to seal that to the wire. And it just goes all the way in. Then the 2 position is the signal wire. And it just pushes in. And this is the 12 volt. And then they all push in, and you hear an audible click. I don't know if you were able to pick that up when they go in all the way. And I'll just double check. Doesn't hurt to make sure, yeah, that I've got those wired the way I want. And then once it's inserted and clicks, you press this little hood down, and that basically locks the pins in place. Now I've had this happen before where it's been a little stubborn before, and that's usually because, and now we can get you a close-up, you can see those pins. One of them hasn't gone in all the way, and that's what's happened here. The middle one, and that wire was a little bit shorter, didn't click all the way in. So now I can see that they're all up where they should be. And again, this little piece is part of the connector, but it also guarantees that these won't ever come out of there. Yeah, see, you heard that, I'm pretty sure. That snapped right on, and this connector is now ready to go. And like I said, one thing I like about them is I could do that up on a ladder if I had to. I mean, I wouldn't enjoy it, but I could do it. All right. And then the last part of this is I put a bit of heat shrink. This is extra large and extra shrinky. I think it's 4 times shrink. Is that right? Yeah, 4 times shrink on the end here to give a little bit of strain relief to the wire. It also gives me some additional weather seal, but these are self-sealing anyways. So I'll go ahead and shrink that. It's pretty hot, but I want to get a good adhesion to this, and I pinch the ends here just a little bit to make sure, and because it's so hot I'm going to use some pliers for that. Okay, so that is set up. It's got its strain relief on. This is ready to plug in where the old string was. This will plug in. This will be the first light on the string, and then this piece, this thicker wire, will follow the lights over to the other end to reinforce how much current can be handled by this string. So that's it. That takes you through all the steps that I do for the creation of these. Yeah, that's basically it at that point. The other end needs to be put on, but it will be very similar to this one. The only real difference is I won't be putting a tap on it. But other than that, I just need to put the other end on and we're good to go. So I won't bore you with going through the whole thing one more time. If you really want to see it more than once, you can always replay the other video. The other side connector is obviously the reverse of this one. It's the one that snaps onto here. That's one difference. But other than that, it will be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll get the other end all done, and then I'll show you. I'll take the camera out there so we can actually test the string and make sure it all works, and then I think we'll be done. Okay, I've got it plugged in and I've got the test pattern running. They seem to be working just fine, and I've checked the ones up above that this one feeds, and we're in good shape. So now I'm going to go ahead and install them. Okay, that finishes this one off. They look like they're working great. I'll see you in our next video.